Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Matt Belair podcast, where I bring you incredible guests to help you master your mind, body, and spirit. Today's guest is a truly incredible human being, and if you want to learn about the power of following your dreams, conscious business, mindset, and for sure some incredible stories, this episode is for you. Today's guest sold his massively successful real estate business to launch Change Heroes, which is a groundbreaking friend funding platform that has raised well over $1 million to fund 100.
Let's pause, Matt.
Okay.
Keep the recording going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's live.
Let's do this. I'm going to do the intro. Okay. We're going to switch it up,
Dude,
and we're going
perfect.
to say. So Matt and I have known each other for a few years. We had shared the same mentor, have watched each other's paths. It's been great. You guys know a bunch about Matt, how he's got a proud, ridiculously amazing beard. But you know what? The real estate company was fun. Change Heroes is, I must have sent you an old bio, because Change Heroes is a friend funding platform, yes, where it was based on you getting 33 of your friends to give $3.33 a day for 3 months.
Yep.
And I like being on podcasts like yours, Matt, because there's people listening that are like, wait a second, 333, like what is this? Are we talking some, I don't know, ascended masters stuff? Are we talking about like the world, the vibration of yes? Are we talking about, are there crystals embedded in these people's laptops? You know what I mean? Like we can kind of go deeper down than what. So yes, Changers is a friend funding platform. We actually raised about $4 million, funded 400 projects in 14 countries. And it was all by getting people to give $3.33 a day for 3 months. That was like the jam. It was like we had about 16,000 people do it from 80 countries around the world. And that spawned this question that all these people started asking, which was, can I go see the school that I helped fund? Can I go see the water project? Can I go see the house? Can I go see the library, or the girls that are getting scholarships, et cetera? And we always had to say no. We always had to say, like, no, you can't. It's logistic nightmare to get you to go to flying to Nairobi and then get out to the Rift Valley in Kenya to meet the Masai Mara or the Masai Mara tribe, and it's just like a lot of things that would have to line up to make that happen. So we always said for 5 years we had to say no, you can't go and see it. And so that was the catalyst of us coming up with what the company is now, which is called Journey. And what we do at Journey is we bring groups of people, like say Matt and a whole bunch of his followers, down to Mexico, for example. We're going to Mexico in a week from now, where we'll build homes for 2 days. Then we'll meditate, do yoga, surf, do all these things to kind of integrate the experience that people just had. And the whole goal of Change Heroes and Journey and any other company that I'm involved with is to scale empathy. Because I think a world with empathy, where people truly saw their fellow human beings as the same as themselves, is a world that doesn't have war or poverty or gender inequality and all these things that we ideally wouldn't have on our earth.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. And I love that you did that too, because when I was looking at the bio that you sent, like, I was like, am I just going to intro you as like my buddy, and you know what I mean, and all that? But I think it's so interesting and important for people to know that you, like, that backstory of, having, that quote unquote success within Canada, and then being like, this isn't the thing. Then you go to Africa and be like, I got to reassess my business, like my life and what I'm doing, and then you just kick ass. And I watched it happen in real time. It was friggin' amazing, dude. And I was like, holy crap. And then you do it, and then we do, I was at the party in Vancouver where you'd raised your first $1 million. So, you and I are trying to connect here and there as we're building our, what we're passionate about. And I'm almost linked up at Burning Man a couple times. I can't believe it. 2 times in a row, I was like, okay, where's the camp? Like, I gotta get there, and how
Next year.
And it just,
man, who's at the camp at Burning Man? You're just out there on random missions, and you just stop back to the camp to just like share stories, get some food, and then go out again, right? But totally, we'll see each other there one day.
Yeah, no agenda allowed. I think that we crossed paths, but we haven't caught up so long. So to hear about Journey and how this is molded is pretty interesting.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, again, like, your podcast is different. Like, if I was doing a interview somewhere else, it's all about, well, the travel industry is the world's largest industry. It's worth $7 trillion, and we're using the world's largest industry to become a vehicle for social change. We talk about that. We talk about like the granularities of travel and why we think it's so important. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we want to speed up consciousness. We want to raise, do what you're doing in your life, which is why you have, the artwork that you have behind you and the symbols that you have on your, the bottom screen that everyone can see here. So we're looking to increase let's say the vibration of our society. And to do that, we have to increase the consciousness of the individuals in our society. And so, I'm not saying like it's my job to go and like raise up consciousness, et cetera, but it's kind of all our jobs. That's what we're here for, is to evolve, to grow, to expand. And the way that we found that to happen in the most replicable, scalable, predictable way is by giving someone an experience that breaks down all the walls of separation in their head. They might have the walls of separation between, like, I'm Matt Belair and I'm from Canada, and so I'm very different from someone from Uganda, or I'm different from someone in the States, or I'm different from someone in Sri Lanka, or wherever it might be, and give them an experience where they realize that we're all exactly the same. And that happens by connecting people one-to-one, face-to-face, which is why we use travel, and which is why we not just use travel to go and like shake hands with someone, but on our trips, you, Matt, let's say you raised enough money to build a house, or you just wanted to come on a trip and build one of these houses. You meet with the family, you meet the mom, you meet the dad, you meet the kids, you hear their stories, hear, why are they living in some conditions in the first place? And what are their goals and their aspirations? And then build alongside them for 2 days. Build a house that goes up in 2 days. It's prefabricated. It's pretty cool. Goes up in 2 days, and build alongside them and eat the food that they eat, sleep close to where they sleep, and really feel what it's like to live their life. And all the way to the point of, on our very first trip, actually, I went to El Salvador, and I watched this guy, Marlon, who's a 40-year-old nightclub promoter from Vancouver, who he had raised enough money to build a home, and he built it alongside this guy who's 95 years old. A guy named Senor Rodriguez, 95 years old, never had a new home in his life. And Marlon sat there and, swung hammers right next to this guy for 2 days straight, and then ended up handing him the keys and watching this 95-year-old man walk into his first brand new home.
Wow.
It's like moments like that, you could see it. You could see it in Marlon, his empathy scale raising, his, however you want to call it, his consciousness, his vibration, whatever it is. There's no going back from an experience like that. And so we think, is if it's possible to replicate that experience for people en masse, then potentially we'd achieve that goal of raising consciousness at the same time.
That's amazing, man. It's so interesting too. Today, in that vein, I was doing a post on Instagram, and it was just about the power of travel. And if you can read a book about an experience about Nepal, you can even listen to you telling this story about how powerful that was for the person, and you can sit and imagine, like, wow, I imagine that's powerful. I imagine, you see a picture of Everest, right? I imagine that's powerful. But being in it, create your own unique. It's such a different scale, right? It's almost not even the same. And like you said, there is no going back, because when you're hearing something like on the podcast or seeing something, even, you can be moved a little bit, but then you can also kind of stuff it in a nice little corner, or like we touch that box for a little bit. But when you're in it, you just kind of get obliterated, and there is no coming back. It's going to change you. And now you're a different person, and you're going to recalibrate, what's most valuable, and a lot of the times, like, what is important, getting mad at stupid things.
Totally. It gives you perspective. And it's not, the trips aren't to be like, we're really lucky, and so we need to be living a different way. That's not what it's about. It's not about shame or guilt or comparison. It's about perspective. It's about just being real and being open and being like, okay, this is how a large portion of the world lives. This is how it is. And what's fascinating is that when we come back from these trips, inevitably people are raving about how much they learned on these trips. How much they learned about family and community and how important that is. Because we see that, you go and live in or you go and work in some of these communities, whether it be El Salvador, Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, anywhere, and in these places anyways, and you see the power of family. They see the power of the community that they have and how they work together. And it's something that we've lost, not fully, but it's something we've in large part lost in, let's say, our culture, in maybe Canada and the States. I know I'm kind of overgeneralizing, but that also leads to, I think, two things that I think would be really interesting to jam on, which is, one is this resurgence of community that we're seeing. Like I'm not Jewish, but I'm hosting a Shabbat dinner tomorrow night. and kind of co-hosting with a buddy who is Jewish, but it's all about community, bringing people together, breaking bread together, putting your phones down or on silent or in airplane mode, and just like looking people in the eye and bringing community together. So in our front yard, we'll have 50 people here tomorrow night that are just not digitally engaged, looking people eye to eye, and it's so powerful. And people are like just yearning for that kind of connection that we don't have right now. And the other one is, I'd love your thoughts on, comparing a travel experience, which is outside of your comfort zone, outside of anything you've experienced a lot of times, comparing that to an experience that you might have had, let's say, could be at Burning Man or elsewhere with like a psychedelic. Because I find people will talk about them in a relatively similar manner. It's just like, once you've seen that, once this part of, with travel, it might be, part of your heart that is open that wasn't open before, or as a part of your brain that is same thing, open that wasn't open before. And it could be the same thing with, it's like, I don't know if you guys talk about that on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But, it'd be interesting for your thought, because you're pretty well traveled, to see the correlation between the two, and maybe give an example of someone that you saw have a psychedelic experience that has never been the same and has like changed the trajectory of their life because they're feeling more connection and more empathy or whatever they might have felt, because of it.
Yeah, I think like the overall arching theme is direct experience. Direct experience, you know what I mean? And so a psychedelic will show you, depending on which one, let's go mushrooms, but ayahuasca, we'll start there. That's, that's the mother, and it is the mother, right? But then you've got like mushrooms or something done properly, right? In the forest, about connecting with yourself to expand your mind, not at a party, done right. And I think there's going to be a resurgence of modern shamanism, like kind of like, you're having that host of people. Maybe someone's never tried mushrooms. They're nervous. They've heard all these different things. And so you got me and you and a bunch of people like, hey, we're just going to do a camping trip. We're going to take a small dose, whatever dose it is. And you have a guide there and people who understand that state. So then they can have a direct experience that they might not be able to get to without that kind of substance. It's the same with Burning Man. It's a direct experience that people think that they know what's going on. Then you're in it and you're like, holy shit, this is pretty intense. Yeah. And people just get changed, right? And then travel, the same thing, like with what you're doing, right? With when I trained in China with Shaolin monks, I still have a buddy in Vancouver, and the fact that him and I were both there, you can describe the experience to people, but being in the mountains in China, having a little Chinese guy, like he was a full-on ninja, like an absolute ninja, stone with 2 fingers, like thick over his head like this, like they're all ninjas, and just have them train and like beat you and go through that. It's just, that never happened because of that is in me. And so I think it's the power of direct experience. You know what I mean? Because you got to go through the work, you got to do the effort, and, cultivating spaces like you're doing, really powerful experiences that you cannot get away from, And that's where I think that you really got to accept it. They say, you're not, or you don't get a teacher until you're ready, or, if you don't want to learn, it doesn't matter, right? So you got to want to have that experience. And when you're ready, you're going to find these different ways to have them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That's a really good point, because that's interesting, because someone was at our place the other day and they're like, I'm really feeling and hearing all about this ayahuasca, and I've been thinking about potentially trying it, and my roommate says, well, that's you're being called. You can, now's your time, if you want to do it, if it shows up for you. And they kind of agreed and did it. And what's interesting about that is that the most recent person that I saw book a trip to Mexico with us, we've got a trip going in a week, which is on December 9th. And the most recent person, I got on the phone with her and before she booked, and she said, I was, I asked someone about getting involved with some kind of philanthropic initiatives. They told me about Journey. And so I put it in the back of my mind. And the next person I talked to, they told me about Journey. And so it's just like, it's just there for people. And a lot of times people are just waiting for something. A lot of our society, I don't know what the best word is, maybe our pure group millennials, I don't know how you say it, but is looking for an experience like this. They want to do something bigger than themselves, and you look online and you can either like pay $4,000 to go to some orphanage and hold orphans for a week and not have any lasting impact on the community that you visit, and potentially even be of detriment to the visit to the community, or you can go to Mexico for some all-inclusive and drink Bahama Mamas at the swim bar for a week long and go home with nothing but a sunburn and a hangover. Or you can go on an adventure, like go to Everest. But there's this spot that I see in the in the travel industry that is completely available, and there's a huge need for is people want to combine, let's say, wellness with impact, with adventure, with community, all in one trip. Like we're this millennial generation that we're part of. We want everything, and we want it fast. We want it easy. We want it and want to do it with our friends. And so that's the whole goal of this is like, can we pack a sustainable, holistic approach to impact within 2 days? Can we leave that community different than what we found it? Can we do it in an absolutely sustainable way, so that the community is empowered, the community is working hand in hand with you. You're working with, or we work with a nonprofit that works as a liaison between the communities and local government. And they have this rating system, 1,000-point rating system, to make sure that the families that are receiving the homes are the most in need families, making sure that they're invited into the communities in the first place. They've been working, in these communities for 20 years throughout Latin America. They built 100,000 of these homes. So making sure that we partner with high quality nonprofit partners so that the impact is legit and substantial. Plus, we bring in yoga teachers from all over North America, and breath coaches and meditation teachers, and someone's going to be doing stand-up paddleboard, someone could be like candlelight yin, someone could be doing like a morning sunrise session kind of thing, and pack all of that into 6 days, and give someone something that they can't get anywhere else. And that's where, and I know you wanted to talk a little bit about like business and social good kind of thing. That's where I see this nexus, this kind of Venn diagram kind of coming together, is giving the market what it needs, what it wants, which is this new, innovative, integrative, full-on trip. Give them that, and at the same time be making a massive impact. And because if there's a problem, if you're giving the market what it wants, then there's money to be made. And if you're solving or making impact at the same time, then I think those things kind of work hand in hand and benefit each other in a huge way.
Yeah, man. And I love all that. I think that it's super important just to kind of touch on that point where, the experience that you're creating in that 2 days, I can imagine, because I've been in very similar situations. You go travel, right? You go to the Bahamas, you're probably not going to make a lifelong friend. I promise you, if you go do your 2-day experience, so with what you're doing with Journey and things like that, you're probably going to have a friend that you could call on 10 years down the road.
Totally.
It's such a powerful experience. And then you're creating, you're just being more human. And I think maybe that's just like the most fundamental connection. We're kind of in a society where we're out of the box and kind of watching, but then you put yourself in it and you're like, holy shit, I made a difference. And I got to choose, to help. I got to get involved, and I had an amazing experience, and I met all these other people. So, a traditional travel, giving people that option of maybe every year, that's what they do. They go to the all-inclusive, which I see no friggin' value in, because they just want to escape. But the feeling that they would bring home from this experience. And so, like, one of my buddies is fixing his house, right? And I travel a lot. And right now I'm in my dad's basement where I grew up. And, I got my friends in town, and, one of my buddies was fixing something. He's like, oh, I didn't want to bother you. I was like, man, it doesn't matter to me if I'm painting your house or I'm helping you do floorboards. We're hanging out. Like, I love you. It doesn't matter what we're doing. We don't need to be having fun.
Yeah.
Like, it is fun, right? That's the community aspect, so we're bringing our community here, mixing with their community. And I think it's really interesting and really powerful.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
So, well, part of the things that I wanted to touch on is, like, with your expertise and watching how you did it, we've got kind of, I think, one set of people that is successful, and they're really struggling from getting away from corporate America, corporate Canada, whatever it is, that run of the mill, because they're on it, but you know what? It pays for their car. It pays for their life. Mm-hmm. Then you've got the other side where a lot of people are coming up and just looking at it and be like, this is all bullshit. I don't know where I can kind of create impact. And you're doing, lectures at universities now around social business. So, for me as a human, I'm like, okay, cool. I know I want to go on that trip. That's just, of course it was freaking awesome. I know that. Now everyone's trying to sort out their own, their own life. And I think that when you talked about raising consciousness, one thing that I always come back to is it's about sorting your own business out. If you can't swim, you are not helping anyone else. So, I guess from your unique position, what do you find, like, people can find this balance where they can start if they're trying to do something conscious and break out, or just finding that, balance within themselves to create their own version? Like, you've created two really unique, amazing businesses and companies around kind of putting intention first. So maybe some help for people
Yeah.
trying to find some way.
You know what, man, I think this is going to be a really different answer than most would give, because most would talk about, volunteer on the weekends, or, work for a nonprofit or advise for a nonprofit or a bunch of other bullshit like that. When in reality, in my mind, Matt, and this is, I don't know, this is something I feel very passionately about, is that a lot of times we're working in a job, whether it be me working in real estate, or someone working in like what you call called corporate America. And we're doing that because that's what we should do, right? That's what we should do. That's what we've been taught we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make money. We're supposed to have a nice car. We're supposed to do all the shoulds, right? Well, what's interesting is that pivoting and going out and starting your own nonprofit, or trying to follow in the footsteps of Craig Kielburger or Scott Harrison or something like that, that can actually also be a should. That can also be like, well, I should give back. I should go and do something better with my life, or more giving. And so I think two shoulds are actually even worse than one should, if you will. So if you're doing, you know what I mean? Like, you're just shoulding all over the place. And what I would say, I would break out of going, well, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do this. Fuck that. Go deep inside your own being and be like, what does my inner child want? What is the thing that I would just love to do? I know that sounds a little bit cliche and a bit metaphysical, but it's cliche for a reason, because it's absolutely true. And so I think if you go deep inside yourself and you feel like, I want nothing more than to build $1 billion closet door company, then that's exactly what you need to do, because it's whatever's inside you burning to do. That's where I see there's so much conflict, especially in guys women are a lot ahead of the game in men in almost every arena. So guys that are, let's say, like 21, 22, 23, and they have this burning desire in them to go out, they're ambitious, they're burning desire to build a company that's profitable and that's going to be, making a whole bunch of money. Yet we are telling them to say, well, no, well, you should, give back, and you should do all of these things, when that would be going against what they feel they need to do inside, whether it be to be a man, to be whatever it is. And so I always tell people, I was like, whatever you deeply feel you are passionate about doing, you should 100% do that, whether it be building a real estate company, or being a cop, or starting a spiritual movement. That's exactly what you need to do, because that's what you're going to be passionate about, et cetera. And it's, kind of like, to loop back, I don't know if you've probably read the book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And in that book, there's a really good quote, and it says, every human wish must find ultimate attainment, because it's desire that binds us to the reincarnational wheel. And there's this really good story in there. I might botch it a little bit here, but I'll tell it anyways. There's a story in there of Babaji, like the guru of all the gurus in that lineage, right? Babaji meets up with Lahiri Mahashai, I think that's how you say it, Lahiri Mahashai, who's then the guru of Sri Yukteswar, and who's the guru of Yogananda, right? Remember that lineage? Yeah, so Babaji, when he comes to Lahiri at the time is a homekeeper. He's got kids and a wife and stuff. He goes to Lahiri and he's just like, do you remember me? And they remember each other. They've been, many lifetimes together, etc. And Babaji's the master. And so they go into this forest. Babaji erects this incredible golden palace, right, with ornate stones and like all of the things that you could ever want in a palace. And Lahiri's just like, what is this for? And Babaji says, it's yours. This is all yours. And he's like, why? And he says, well, because in you, there's a desire to have wealth. There's a desire to have riches and stuff like that. So he's like, so here, now you have it all. And now that you've had it all and you've felt it and tasted it, now we can move on to the good stuff, which is like being a spiritual teacher, right? Or being a master. Yeah. And so I think that's like the most wonderful example, because if you want a fucking castle, go out there and build yourself or earn yourself or whatever a castle, because on the other side of that castle is the actual good stuff. Like once you actually do earn all of that kind of stuff, and it kind of has to happen in that order. If there's a burning inside you to go make a whole bunch of money, read all the books, make as much money as humanly possible. And at some point, whether by not making any, hitting rock bottom and fully surrendering and getting over that whole notion in the first place, or whether it be becoming a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever you want to call it, and realizing that money will not actually bring you lasting fulfillment, and that it's actually not your deepest path, like your long-term path. However you get over that, you got to get over it. And And so and for me, I feel so fortunate that I had this burning, when I was 21, 22, to be really wealthy. I was like, I want to make a whole bunch of money. And so I went out in real estate and just worked my balls off and did really well. And I made like 500 grand in a year when I was 24, 25, which it was like 10 times more than I had ever made before in a year. I was a firefighter before that. And so 10 times more than I ever made. And then it just kept making more. And because of that, I was like, wow, this actually isn't going to bring lasting happiness. I'm kind of stuck in this business. I don't have any freedom, et cetera. I'm not saying that money's bad at all, but because of that experience, I got to kind of wanted to dive into what would actually fulfill me as a person. Then I went to the other end of the spectrum. You'll get a kick out of this, Matt. We haven't talked for a while. And I literally spent all of the money that I had made in real estate on Change Heroes, all of it. I went to banks. I took out like all these loans because I used to be at my mid-20s as a millionaire. So the banks like loaned me as much money as I wanted, right? So I went to them and I was like, I want lots of money, lines of credit, so that I could pour it into this company. As I poured it all into the company, the company didn't work out. And so it didn't work out. Like we just couldn't get to a model that was profitable enough for us to sustain ourselves. At one point we had like over 20 employees. It's a really high burn rate. It was amazing for the impact side because we ended up, like I said, funded 400 projects all over the world, which was amazing. And on the other end, I didn't take care of my dollars and cents, and I didn't get the company to profitability. So the company had to fold. At one point it folded, and then it kind of started up again. It's folded, and then it started up again. And right now it's like kind of getting its legs under it. So I went from like, millionaire in mid-20s to like bankrupt in mid-30s, and learning the whole time. And to be totally honest, I'm 34 now, and I'm by far the happiest I've ever been. And it is totally exclusive of whether I have $0 in my bank account or, $1 million in my bank account. That being said, I do like to buy like nice dark chocolate and good food. So I'm an advocate of people making definitely enough money to be thriving. But anyways, there's a long-winded version of your question on, should we go like the whole nonprofit, route, or be a for-profit corporate America? It's actually neither. It's like what your heart, in my mind, it's what your heart and your soul are like yearning to do, regardless of which sector it's in. Because if you do the whole for-profit, you're going to end up doing the impact stuff afterwards anyways. If you go to the impact stuff right now, but you wish you were in the for-profit stuff, then your mind's always going to be there. You're probably not going to make that big of an impact anyways. And, you just got to do what's true for you.
Man, yeah, that's a super wonderful and beautiful answer. I love that. No, I didn't know that happened. So that's awesome. It just,
real shit show.
When you're saying it's just balancing it, right? Because you kind of need both. So you kind of shoot one way. Oh, it's not all about the money. Oh, okay, the nonprofit, you got to be able to make money. So now you've learned from those two experiences, and this is what Journey is. I remember.
Journey. I got to interrupt. Journey is not actually a balance. It is not. No? It is. I mean, it is technically. It is. So you're right, technically, but that's not why we started Journey. I didn't start it so that to be like, I want to make money and I want to make impact. That stuff was all secondary. The core was literally, what do I want? What would I love to do in my life? What is like my ideal life? And my ideal life is traveling. It's building an amazing company with amazing people. It's meditating every day. It's surfing, which is why I live in Los Angeles. And really tapped into like, what would be the most fun I could possibly have in life? And this is coming from, a lot of people could be listening and be like, well, you can't make any money having fun. How the fuck do you know? Have you tried? Have you actually gone out there and said, what would be the most fun thing I could possibly do? Or are you taking the bullshit conditioning that you have from your parents and society that says that fun can't be profitable? If you've done it, if you've gone out and you've literally said, I'm going to have as much fun as humanly possible this year. And I'm not talking like just surfing every day or like, going to Cuba and kiteboarding or something like that. I'm talking about like fun, deeply fulfilling work, play, all of it. What's the most fun you can have in every single arena? If you've actually done that for an entire year, then yes, say that no, you can't have fun and make money at the same time, which I would still challenge. And so I would say, like, instead of, I'm like talking to the imaginary listeners, like pretending I know what they're thinking right now. But I truly believe if you dive in and go like, what am I the most passionate about? What would I have the most fun humanly possible doing? Which in my mind, making impact is very, very fun. Building a company that's profitable is very, very fun. Traveling is very, very fun. Doing all of the things that that would set your soul on fire, set your heart on fire, I truly believe that the money is there.
Yeah, man, I totally agree with that. And whenever I do coaching or talk to someone, or almost the whole intention of this podcast is to get people to that space, because everybody is so unique in what it is that's fun for them, what is fulfilling for them. And as a natural human being, your gift is going to be wanted by someone else, but you're the only one who can do it in that way. So you've got to figure out, it could be knitting mini sweaters for dogs or some obscure crap, right? And it's going to work out, but the whole point is, it's not about this whole external world that you have a view of, because my view of the world is different than your view of the world is different from, as you know, traveling a little kid in Afghanistan or wherever, their view of the world is very, very different. So when we follow, what's in us, then we're going to create harmony in our own environment. Then our family and our community will notice. That's the best thing that we can do for the global scale.
Totally. And if part of it is money, learn about money. There's just so many books out there where you can learn about making cash and how to do spreadsheets and projections and financial statements and all of the things. If part of what you would make your life fun is making a certain amount of money, then learn about money, dive into it.
Yeah, you can solve that issue, and it's all growth. And what I was suggesting with the two companies is everything that you do is a learning experience. So it's going to be 2.0, whether you like it or not. It could explode again, but you're going to learn from it. Then it's going to be 3.0. But the point is, you're ferociously going at what it is that's most important. So I guess I'd want to ask, is there anything that you wish that you're asked on podcasts? What do you think that is most important about life? I'm trying to throw out a few ones and you can just grasp. Or what do you think the most important thing a person can ask themselves?
I think one thing that's really current right now for me is closure, and really enjoying closure. And what I mean by that is my life even a year ago was really, really messy. I just had relationships that didn't have closure with whether it be friends or family or romantic partnerships. My business was kind of falling apart, and I didn't have closure over communications with investors. There's just no closure. And now I would say the theme of my life is closure. It is like taking responsibility and actually bringing things to an end that can come to an end. And I mean that all the way from the micro in I'm single, and I have these 2 dating apps on my phone, and so I'll go on dates from the dating apps, because why don't I think it's really fun, and go on a date. And if I don't feel anything, you know what? Chances are that other person, that woman, she's either thinking, well, I didn't really like that guy, so I don't want to go out again, or she's maybe 3 things. There's a bunch of different things she'd be thinking about. I don't like him, don't want to go out again. One could be, he was okay, I'd potentially go out again if he messages. The next could be I really like that guy, I really hope he asks me out again, and so in any of those situations, I believe that we have a responsibility to bring closure to a situation that we open. Like me on a dating app is opening a relationship with someone, whether it just be for a taco and that's it, or whether it be an actual romantic act, or whether it be a full-on relationship. We have the responsibility of bringing closure to whatever we opened. And so I'll send afterwards, I might send a text saying look, this is kind of how I felt, and I'd love to meet you again or not meet you again or whatever, but just bring closure to the situation regardless. Or even at the end of the day being look, this was really fun. I'm not really feeling sparks right now, but you're super cool. Love to hang out another time as friends, and then there's closure. Does that make sense? So it can be granular from that side all the way to a macro example of bringing closure to, I don't know, a relationship that you have with your dad, where you have a tumultuous relationship with your dad for some reason and are scared to say anything to him. We have the responsibility to potentially bring closure to that. I don't know if that's the best example, but
interesting. Is it kind of similar to taking personal responsibility? So you're bringing in a level of awareness that your choices in words and actions are affecting someone, and you're just bringing closure and clarity to how you feel about the situation, so that they know, and you don't have this energy in the air of mystery that's unnecessary. So it's it's freeing up energy for you to direct your focus.
Focus. Yeah, because otherwise you got all these like ties, you got all these things. I remember my former girlfriend, and the thing just lingered. It lingered for another 4-6 months. It wasn't healthy for her. It wasn't healthy for me. And looking back, it would have been much healthier to just like really bring closure, honor that, stick to that, and move on. So both people can kind of heal. And I think actually, Matt, us men are better at not giving closure. I'm saying it in a bad way. We're better at like kind of like shying away and being like, well, or maybe women do too. I don't know. Maybe this is like the whole ghosting phenomenon, where, if we heard of ghosting, maybe it's just like an LA thing. I heard it when I moved down here, where people are.
One thing come up, but I'm unclear, so please inform me.
So you're texting with someone that you're like gone on a date with or something like that, and you're kind of texting back and forth, and then someone just stops replying. They don't like bring any closure to it. It's called ghosting, which I think is the funniest thing. So
that's what that means.
So yeah, it's like the opposite of ghosting, because if you ghost, you still have this like weird little thing, this some sort of a tie that's happening. Taking responsibility over your own actions and just being really transparent with how you feel.
Man, I think that's such a powerful insight, actually, because I'm going through this course today. This Core Love guy, he's going to be on the podcast, and his. When I look at his story, I don't know if I'm taking crazy pills or not, because it's absurd what I'm learning. Okay. What I'm hearing. Like, I'll send you some of the stuff. It's like, for me, it's a stretch. Even though I've done ayahuasca, I've done breathing techniques where I've popped out of my body and can do it repeatedly, and you go to this realm. But his essential story is he hit his head. He had a severe brain injury when he was a kid, and he kept going into seizures and popping into ayahuasca DMT realm of gods and goddesses.
What?
Yeah, 12 and 13. It's intense, man. And I have a friend, Julian, who had the same thing and had to he lost all his memory. So he had to do breathing techniques, things like this, to get his memory back. So,
no way.
Yeah. So I'm going through his course, and basically it's all about doing breath patterns to create streams of energy. And basically exact same thing is that these are all lines of energy. And if you're opened up and you have all of these strings going out, you can't have a laser focus towards your goal because you have all this energy being dispersed.
Wow.
So the fact that you're closing those things down, like it's the same thing with focus, right? The definition of multitasking is the illusion of doing two tasks when you're actually just doing one.
Yeah.
Right? It's so good. So it's the same idea. It's pretty interesting. Huh.
I like that. I really like that. Yeah. So bringing closure to whatever it is, and just having the hard conversations or the awkward conversations or whatever it is, might suck in the very, very short term, but it's so much better even in the short, medium, and long term. And again, having that energy just kind of lingering there is just such a energy suck.
So yeah, man. And there's so many questions. I'll definitely have to get you on again. With you, I know your story, and it's pretty amazing. You achieve success, and then you do nonprofit, which is amazing. But overall, ever as long as I know, you've been just an awesome guy. You've done a lot of really amazing things. You lead with your heart, and you make a change. You affect change, man. You are like the example of one person can sort shit out and make a big impact, and that is you.
That's funny.
With doing all those things, and having a life of joy. What advice would you give to people to, what's most important to you about living, about being alive? Like, what would you want to, share?
That's like this whole thing, this whole thing that we do as humans, we look at other people and be like, well, they're living a happy life. I wish I could live a happy life. And your comment of like, living this life of joy, dude, I remember, or here's a perfect example of maybe my like advice, if I had advice, is to feel all the feelings. So, my former girlfriend and I broke up like 5 weeks ago or so. And it was hard, man. We were like in it. This woman is so incredible, and it's not right. We're definitely not meant to be together, but she's fucking so amazing. And so getting over an amazing woman is very, very hard to do. And the other day I really started to miss her. Like 3 days ago, I was just like, oh God, man, I miss her so much right now. I'd really love for her to be here. And so I didn't go like, oh, but I'm fine. I'm gonna move past it, or like put those feelings down deep inside, which us dudes like to do, like shove them down, and then they kind of like come up with anger or whatever it is. But I felt so sad that I just like stopped. I think I moved an appointment or two, when I work from home, so it's easier for me. I went into my room. I like curled up like a little baby, and I just fucking cried. Just like sat there and knowing that I'm not going to cry forever, and cried and kind of felt that come out. And I was like, okay, good. Now I can move on with the day. And that would, us as people, we don't do that. We don't honor, like, how do we feel? Like, what are you feeling? Angry? Then get angry. Like if I'm feeling lots of pent up energy, I'll go for a surf and I'll go under the water and scream my head off. Like I said, even 4 months ago, I was almost like angry every single day because of some intensity that I was going through. And I'd go to the water and just like scream my head off, like, be angry. If you're sad, be fucking sad. If you're angry, be fucking angry, because it's so different. Like, we think that if we try to get past the emotions or get away from them, that we're actually moving on. We're not. They're still there because they haven't been felt yet. In my mind, emotions are kind of like this, and we kind of hit them. We're like, no, thank you. And then we come back and we're like, no, thanks. But really, you have to go through them to the other side to actually get over them.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a beautiful example. It reminds me of my friend, and really amazing information. So, man, awesome answer. I have a friend of mine. Again, I have one podcast when the second one's coming out, but his whole walls it's something out of a sci-fi film. And he talks about the chakras, right?
Yep.
And of the importance is, like, it's kind of like a filter. So you got to move through it. And that's exactly what you're talking about. You got to move. You can't avoid it. You got to move through. But the problem is that stuff gets caught in our filters, whatever energy system within the body. And Dr. Joe says that there's little neural nets or
neural pathways.
Clusters of neurons in each energy center. So they're actually like little mini brains. So when we're holding the energy of that memory and emotion, and we don't move through it, so you don't cry, you don't release, you don't do that kind of thing, now you're holding it, and then again, you're creating a blockage. So now experiences can't go through these energy centers. And that's what we're doing here as humans, is we're going through the experiences as humans to learn we're emotional beings. And then that's how you can kind of like cleanse and move forward. So I think that's extremely powerful and amazing information. I think, well, we only have a few minutes here left, but I was going to ask, you've got the 333 on there. I was going to go like esoteric big picture of, like, do you have any thoughts on what's going on with this, shift? I know a lot of the people that are doing spiritual work feel like there's a big shift going on in consciousness. Or would you want to take the route of, if you could empower society as you see as a whole, with like a mindset or something that they could take, like something that you would change, around the world that you think would really, have a shift on the outside, like, with our systems and our schools and things like that, just a belief, or I don't know which way you want to take that if I even worded the question.
No, that's cool. I think it's a good lead. I'm sure there's a shift happening, and I guess what I would say is that these shifts, I don't know of any documented that have happened overnight, and overnight can mean 10 years. These things don't happen fast. They might feel fast and stuff is speeding up, and yes, and it's going to take some time. So I think if we, whether it be a shift in consciousness or anything related, anything, that we put our happiness or enjoyment into the future, we're kind of missing the point. If we think that we have to go through this shift for us to be, for you individual person to be happy, then you miss the whole point of, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to speak too big, but of why we're here in the first place, and how you can be the biggest part of that shift. If that's what, if you're advocating for a big shift in consciousness and you're hoping for it because, Trump got elected and that's a sign of being, lacking consciousness, or however you want to put it, then, and you're putting your happiness off until that ends, then you're missing the point. Again, the thing that would speed this stuff up the fastest is when people truly accept, and I'm not saying don't fight, but surrender to what is, and know that these shifts, I'm more of a believer in like a very long cycles that we go through, like 108,000 year cycles and stuff. When you're in a 108,000 year cycle, stuff does not happen fast. From our perspective, in my mind, something to happen within 1,000 years, from my mind, is very, very fast. 1,000 years is fast comparatively to how long the Earth has been here and how long cosmos have been around. and we think that stuff is going to change in our lifetime, I would say, definitely move things forward as fast as possible, as you feel is right, and hunker down, because, accept where you are right now and be happy right now, because stuff is not going to change in the next, year or 2 years, or in my mind, as long as anyone listening is alive, things are going to be very similar to this for a long time.
Yeah, man, I love that answer. Well, I've definitely been guilty of that in my own process of trying to, live a life that I love and inspired to lead. Putting things off until, when I have this, that's a curse. When I have this, then it'll be all good. Then I can be happy.
Yeah.
Or putting something outside of you, saying, oh, because of this, I can't be happy. Or, when the shift will come and it'll all work. And then the final point that I noticed in there, which I really loved, was like, for me, this shift that I see happening, and more people waking up in the sense that, I want to bring more joy into my life, and I can create that. That to me is being awake. You know what I mean? Is understanding that you have domain over your own business, and it's to be built. It doesn't just snap. You hunker down and you give it a go. You give it a go with everything that you have, pursuing, as you said before, I totally believe that. What brings you joy? What makes you the happiest? Because through your love, if it's about love and passion and enjoying life, that's going to be your greatest gift to yourself, which is most important, right? That's what you got to sort out. And then that in turn is the greatest gift to every single thing on the planet, the global consciousness, ascension, your community, your family, everything. And so again, it just kind of comes back to personal responsibility and understanding that this is built, this isn't given. And that's where you see people that have had success, whether it's mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, they've built it for themselves. Nobody just got it handed. The kid might get handed a Ferrari, but he could be morally and spiritually bankrupt, and needs to go through whatever he needs to go through to get those chips. So wonderful, man. So
good closing comment, Matt.
Yeah, brother. Well, where can people find more about you? They want to get in touch. They want to go on one of your amazing vacations, which I highly recommend. And I have to.
It's not a vacation, Matt.
Sorry.
It's not a vacation.
Experience.
It's a super fucking adventure.
What's your tagline, bro? I don't know.
It's a journey. It's the website is wejourney.co. wejourney.co. We've got at least a trip a month. We're doing Peru, Guatemala, Mexico, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Argentina, Colombia, and there'll probably be some other ones sprinkled in there throughout 2017. So go to wejourney.co. And if you want to get a hold of me, my email is t@wejourney.co, and I'm happy to jam anytime.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so happy that you and I got to catch up, and I look forward to connecting after this and seeing where I can help and serve that amazing mission. And just thank you for being you, dude, and just kicking ass as hard as you can, and doing what you can to be an honest, authentic, and big heart, dude. Love you, man.
Okay, I love you too. I'm your mirror. Talk to you soon, Matt.
Peace, brother.
Bye.